Welcome back, folks. MTG Joe here. Today we're going to be doing a quick informal meta breakdown. So this weekend is the best of one qualifier weekend for standard format. So every month there is a qualifier weekend where you play a specific format. If you get through both days, you qualify for the Arena Championship. That eventually leads to the Pro Tour. So it's kind of your competitive route through the MTG Arena ladder. And it starts with, on Saturday, March 4th, the standard component, which will be best of one. There'll also be on the Friday following, March 10th, will be standard best of three, with the qualifier weekend starting 11 and 12, being a standard best of three constructed if you make it. So if you finished top 1200 last month, you got 20 play-in points. You can play in the event. You can also spend gems, other play-in points you have from events, stuff of that nature. So what we're going to look at today is looking at the data from Untapped.gg, which is like an aggregator tool. It tracks all the win rates across all the arena matches of folks who use the tool. You can use the tool for free to track your win rates, loss rates, stuff like that. The link is in the video description. I'll paste these deck lists. But we're looking February 24th through March 3rd, so the last week or so. We're just looking at mythic rank. So we're looking at the top of the ladder, seeing what works the best. We have 47,000 games played of Magic. And if we jump into it, we'll look at... I ended up picking 6. I was going to do 5 decks. But there's enough decks with like reasonable win rates that I wanted to highlight those. Try to keep a couple different deck play styles. But before we look at the list themselves, quick favor to ask. I am on the quest for 10,000 YouTube subs. We are approaching 8,000. I'm trying to get there by June. So if you haven't subbed to the channel, we do these meta breakdowns every week across every format in Arena, as much as the data exists. So if you're looking to keep up on top of what are the new trends in terms of meta decks, what's the hot new deck, and then just get a whole bunch of very competitive deck lists, you can check that out on my channel every week. We also do a bunch of gameplay demos on the channel as well. So we can hit subscribe, free, easy, helps out, and we're good to go. So jumping into it, top deck right now in Mythic, for like the last week or so, is mono white aggro, and this isn't the Soldiers version. This is kind of the Phyrexian Vindicator, just good mono white creatures version. 63.5%, 100 games played. And then keep in mind when I do this, I switch 100 games. If we look at 200 matches, kind of cannibalizes things. So what I want to try to do with the fewer match size is, especially in a week, it's unusual for someone to play one deck in the course of a week over 100 games. If there's slight deviations, then they get counted as different decks. So I want to kind of see where the outliers are, right? So if everybody's on blue-white soldiers, which we'll see, that's kind of a known deck. But if someone found a way to kind of beat that deck or beat some of the mono-red decks or stuff like that, we want to highlight it in terms of the count. So that's why I go with the 100-game sample size. Ideally, in the perfect world, we'd have 10,000 games of each to get a true representation, but this is a good start. So the big kind of draw of this version over Soldiers, where you're not getting the synergy, is Phyrexian Vindicator. 4 mana, 5/5 flyer, good stats on its own, but basically not like damage can't be dealt to it to kill it. You have to either exile it, sacrifice it, or sweep it. And if damage would be dealt to it, you get to cancel out that damage and then redirect it to any type of permanent or to your opponent's face, any target. So it's really formidable for like the Gruul decks, some of the Soldier decks that don't have exile removal other than a couple cards, like any of the creature attacking decks, Selesnya Toxic, Mono Reds, Gruul, stuff like that. The rest of the deck, so we have Hopeful Initiate, which gets bigger, and then you can remove counters to blow up artifacts or enchantments, Skrell for protection and pseudo unblockable for one of your creatures. Guardian of New Benalia has kind of indestructible for the turn if you discard cards, so you get some value there. Also can it can attack by tapping other creatures that aren't necessarily good attackers to get some scry to help you shape up your future draws. Adversary is kind of your Lord effect in this deck. Lets you kick it multiple times potentially to put added power. Thalia for attacks, Adeline for go wide board states, Peacekeeper for attacks, 3 Brutal Cathars as ways to kind of exile. I maybe would just trim on an Anointed and play a Brutal Cathar. Just having the removal is usually pretty good. Steel Seraph oftentimes will be a 3 mana spell, gives any of your creatures flying, lifelink, or vigilance. All can be relevant in terms of racing situations, lifelink in particular, if you're, say, against mono red, stuff of that nature. Mana base, very, very complicated. 22 planes of your now favorite land style. John Avon is the preferred art. And then a Ganjo just as an extra removal spell. The next deck is Azorius Control, 63%. So this is a Mind Splice Apparatus, Devious Cover-Up kind of cycle through your deck. So the Mind Splice Apparatus will flash in and allow you to have a cost reduction every turn for each oil counter you have on it, and then you're pairing that with a lot of X spells, whether it be March of the Other Really Light as removal, Syncopate as counter, Silver Scrutiny for card advantage, White Sun Zenith as your sweeper, and this is your win condition in the deck. You're basically going to keep putting it back into your library with Devious Cover-Ups, and you always target another Devious Cover-Up, and they basically cycle themselves through. Remember Deluge for card advantage, Union of the Third Path to gain you a bunch of life to keep you alive, and then Depopulate as another sweeper. The one card I would probably see if you can fit space in is Celestis. I was playing a similar deck, and I found Celestis to be very powerful in matchups where you need to like dig or just gain some life. It also helps you ramp up. So if you're under a Thalia tax, it can help in that regard as well. You then go to Mono Red Aggro. So there's kind of two versions going around. There's the Mechanized Warfare version, which is better in the mirror because you have the festivities. But if we look at win rate percentages, it's about 2.5% lower than this version right now. So this version seems to be doing better against the field. So you got some strangles. This is pretty much the port of the best of 3 version that's going around right now and doing well in the best of 3 ladder. So your top end's Raiju, 4 squeeze for like heavy kind of trading and removal games. You're using a burn package, a play with fire, lightning strike, and a couple strangles. A lot of cheap removal. Shivan Devastator's your top end kind of closeout card. Felden for some card advantage, makes blocking awkward. Bloodthirsty flashes back into your removal, and then you got your cheap dorks that get like evasive or bigger, and then Kumano pumps up the team. 3 Mishras, 2 Sokuzens, as some utility lands in the mana base. So that's Mono Red. We'll then go to Azorius Soldiers. So 62% win rate. So this version's on my rel. Usually every week there's some like discourse when I post the best of 1 video. Are we my rel gamers? Are we not? What's usually the better configuration? Sometimes some folks find it too slow. It doesn't do enough. Others find it really powerful. So I'll leave that to your discretion. This version with my rel the last couple of weeks has been the higher performing. Seeing some numbers of Sky Strike Officer. Sky Strike Officer is probably better in a best of 3 format where the games tend to be grindier. And best of 1, you're usually going to have to be attacking with your creatures, so holding things back doesn't always make sense, but it is a good card advantage engine. You have like ways to buff your team with Siege Veteran, Valiant Veteran, the Harbins as a way when you go wide to also get some value there. If you do want to switch Myrel, a lot of the decks are playing Skrelv as a 3 of, just to give your like protection for your key cards, as well as kind of pseudo unblockable. So that's a switch you can do even if you don't have these, or you want to try out the Skrelvs to get lower to the ground. I like the addition of Denick in the best of 1. It can shut off the random Atraxa decks that you might run into that are trying to reanimate. They're not doing great right now, but this might be something people still try. Just because something's not good doesn't mean someone won't try it. But the lifelink also helps in all these creature mirrors just to gain you some life. There's a ways to put a bunch of counters on it or get it like with the Lord effect, so it's good value there. Harbin's kind of your over-the-top win con, and then Brutal Cathar is some removal. Get a lot of utility lands and Fortified Beachhead to pump your team. A lot of dual lands to kind of have clean mana in the games played. From one type of human, white aggro, so there's kind of like variants of the white-based aggro decks. So this is a Naya Humans deck. 59% win rate. So you see a lot of the elements of the mono white deck. Your Hopeful Initiate, Skrelv, Intrepid Adversary, Thalias, your package of your white creatures, but you're splashing other colors for Catilda, which lets you kind of ramp and then be a mana sink. You have Malara, which helps in the poison matchup, but also can be used as kind of if they kill another creature, you can like get rid of Malara instead to kind of bring it back. So it protects your Adelans, Halanas, and Alanas. You get some value that way there. And then Halana and Alana makes any creature you cast just a lot more formidable. Haste, counters, kind of go from there. Sigarda goes over the top. Flying is a lord effect for your creatures. and then also with Coven provides you some card advantage potentially. Plaza of Heroes because you have a lot of legendaries in the deck, so Tricolor lands, Secluded Courtyard because they're all humans, and then just like nice mana base. So a lot of untapped dual lands, which the deck was lacking because you're playing a lot of those slower lands from Shadows over Innistrad. Or Midnight Haunt, not Shadows over Innistrad. That's the remastered. And lastly, we got some poison happening. So there's a couple like variants of this, but the core of the deck is Skrelv's Hive, a Slaughter Slinger, Bloated Contaminator. So this is not the all-in let's target Rot Priest kind of deck. It is incidental. If you have the Rot Priest, you can protect your stuff like that. You have things like Tyvar Stand, Tamiyo's Safekeeping mixed into there. Some of the decks that I've seen have actually been playing Soul Partition. So -2 Ossification, -2 Safekeeping, Soul Partition. The 2 mana exile like a creature or planeswalker. If it's yours, you get to recast it for basically the same mana. If it's your opponent's, it's a 2 mana attack. So that's a flexible kind of removal spell, offense, defense. The Ossification is an interesting one. This mana base seems more simplified, so it does kind of support it with the 10 basics, but you're not playing like the Myrex like you'd see in some of the other versions, but this is kind of the core. So you're just trying to poison out your opponent. You can also just incidentally deal enough damage to them with things like Slaughter Slinger pumping up your team, the Skrelv token, stuff of that nature, but you can kind of attack them on 2 different angles. One important thing if you are playing this deck with the Seed Core, note, if you have a Slaughter Slinger out and your intent is to use the Seed Core on your 1/1, you have to activate the Seed Core either pre-combat or with the trigger on the stack, so you have to go into full control, because otherwise this becomes a 2/2 and then the Seed Core won't be able to target it that way there. So that's it for the week. Hopefully, what I'll do is, as always with these events, I'll link my Twitter. It's always in the video description. As people start providing like lists that I find on Twitter, if stuff deviates, stuff people are doing well with, I'll like those so you can kind of get an additional list of ideas. And then folks, as always, we're a community here, so if you do well with a certain list, drop the list if you're willing to share, and then see if you can help out your fellow magician if you may. But thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you have a great one, and we'll be back next week. Thanks for watching.